Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Crypto News Podcast. We are buzzing as always, and yes, I am back in Toronto. No more Buenos Aires, no more Argentina. I miss it dearly. I'm freezing my balls off here, and I miss the lovely weather. I miss the steaks. I miss the architecture. I miss it all, but Toronto's still elite. Best part about Toronto, being at home with the fam, and of course, Christmas and my background. I said it on the last pod. I'm saying it on this one again. Shout out Julie, my amazing mother, for decking the house. Again, if I was in my condo in Toronto, there would be maybe a Christmas tree, but there would be nothing else. No more Christmas decorations. But show ain't about me. Super pumped to have today's guest on the show, Aaron Buchwald, software engineer at Ava Labs. Super pumped to get into it. Aaron, welcome to the show, my friend. How you doing? I think you're at your parents' house. Is that correct there?
Yeah, that's right. You can probably tell by the blinds right here.
I love it.
Yeah, I'm at my parents' house down in Virginia. Normally I'm based in New York City. And yeah, thanks so much for having me on today, Matt.
Hey, pumped to have you on. So you're based in New York City. I assume you got a condo or an apartment there. You a Christmas tree guy? You do the same as me? Maybe throw up a Christmas tree and nothing else during Christmas time?
This year, no. Last year, I ended up getting a Christmas tree. I have a late November birthday. Last year was on a Tuesday, so I decided the way to celebrate my birthday last year was I just get a bunch of friends to come and help me put up a Christmas tree in my apartment. It was actually super fun, and the whole December, just having the Christmas tree there and like my pretty minimally decorated apartment because I'm not too big on the decorations. Yeah, nothing's really going up. Very few pictures, anything. And I was, oh man, this is really nice. This just makes everything so homey. Coming home, it's really great. But this year, I didn't put the effort in, so it's really nice to come home to family and to come home and have the Christmas tree up with my whole family here. So it's been nice.
I love that. I'm the exact same as you. It's so funny. Guys get shit all the time for being so simple, like that classic meme where it's like, you got a mattress on the floor.
I don't need anything else, man.
You don't even have a desk, but like my condo in Toronto could have so much potential. Like it could literally be all world. There's 2 good rooms in the house. I got a unreal king size bed. Shout out Hush, massive California king, bunch of pillows. It's comfy as shit. I'm logging massive scores on my Oura Ring at home in Toronto. And I got an elite desk setup with a nice view of the city. Got the standing desk, got the Secret Labs chair, got the fat monitor. That's all I give a shit about. I barely cook. I'm a good cook, but I barely cook. I don't even order in that much. I got a rule. I usually got to go for a nice LWALK to go get some food. But it's like, how easy are guys? You give us a work setup. You give us a sleep setup. That's all we need, eh?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I had a TV when I first moved into my apartment. I almost didn't have a mattress. I almost just slept on the floor for a while. But then I didn't have anything to do the day I moved in. My parents drove me up. And I moved in and I was like, all right, I literally had a blanket on the floor. I was all ready to just sleep on the floor. And then I was like, you know what? I'm just going to get a mattress today. It's going to take like an hour. I'm going to go straight to the mattress store. And I moved it. What did I even move it on? I borrowed a cart from the mattress store. It was like a 20-minute walk from my apartment. Put the thing on. Took it off the way back to my apartment. That was the only thing that I had there for the longest time. And then I had a TV set up that was just on the floor, no TV stand. And it was a funny story. When I moved in, my cousin, she's actually an interior decorator. She has like a degree in interior decoration. And so I called her. I was like, hey, I just got a new apartment. I'd love if you could help me out. I don't know how, because I don't know if blue matches with red. I have absolutely no fucking idea.
I'm the same way.
No clue. So I called her. I was like, hey, it'd be great if you could help me out. I'm, looking to put some basic stuff in. And, she just like, yeah, it's no problem at all. Like, send me some pictures of the apartment. I'll help you out. And so I did that. The next day, I sent her a couple of items I was thinking about getting for the apartment. She's like, teaches me what matching means, which I had literally no idea. I don't even remember what it was, like light, dark, whatever, woods. I was learning if woods matched or whatever it was. And I texted her the next day trying to see, is this stuff going to match? And she responded for a couple of days. I was still deciding. So, I'm still watching TV from my floor. And then a few days in, she just stopped responding. And she was being so nice, right? Because she gets paid to do this. And then she just stopped responding for like a few days. And I was like, shit. Like, I don't want to be pushy or anything because you're really being nice and helping me out here. But I am sleepy. I still don't have a couch in my apartment. So I called her back a couple of days after she had responded. And I was like, hey, I really appreciate all the help. Could you let me know what you think? There's some sort of delaying buying a couch on all of this. And then, she's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And she ended up helping me out. And I've got a very minimally decorated, but with a little bit of professional help from her apartment now.
Love that. That's good stuff. Let's jump into the crypto stuff here. Start of the show here. Walk me through what's going on with Avalanche at the moment. Whenever I'm invested in a company and they come on the pod, I always let everyone know. Don't have a big AVAX bag, but I definitely have some AVAX. I think it's I mean, I don't want to say this without being rude, but I think it's almost a little nonsensical to not own some AVAX. I love the Avalanche ecosystem. And again, always let people know whenever someone comes on, I'm not having you on to pump my bags. I mean, this isn't CNBC or
Squawk
or Fox
Box or anything like that.
exactly. This ain't Squawk Box. Like,
You hate to have that comparison, right?
Exactly. It's some
reverse
great
mat index or something.
yeah, it's some great PR for you guys. But again, just letting everyone know and being completely transparent. But walk me through it. Walk me through your journey into the blockchain space, your journey into AVAX, and we'll get into some of the fun stuff, what you and the team are doing at Ava Labs, and of course, Avalanche 9000. But before then, give me the sort of TLDR. How'd you get into blockchain? How'd you get into AVAX and what you guys are building?
Yeah, so my story is when I was way back in high school, I was very interested in crypto, just as not actually knowing what was going on at all or not being too into it, just talking to my cousin who was already out working in Silicon Valley. I always loved chatting with him about what he was working on, being in the tech industry. And we would just text back and forth about different crypto ideas. I had no idea how to execute on any of them, but I was just really interested in this idea of creating a fairer economy, the different properties that blockchain offered. And this was before I had any idea of what was possible. This was also, back in 2016, 2017, when a lot of the things that we were interested in thinking about doing or thought would be really cool actually weren't possible. And I think if you went back to those conversations and looked at where the infrastructure is today, a lot of those things that probably weren't realistic back then are starting to become much more plausible now. But I really got into crypto when I was the summer after my freshman year of university. So I just finished up my freshman year at Cornell. At the time, I was working as part of an aerospace engineering research lab with Professor Mason Peck. So I was working on a CubeSat to send a CubeSat into lunar orbit. So we were working on testing out two technologies, optical navigation and water electrolysis propulsion. So, it's the cool thing of we got to actually work on something of a rocket that runs on water for very low thrust, long distance missions. It was a really cool project. But the reason I got into it was I'd always wanted to work at some mixture or one of the other of between entrepreneurship and research. I thought this was the way to do interesting work in my career. Right? To always be doing something that was new and interesting. But, if you go down the research route, you're always doing something new. And if you're in entrepreneurship, whether that is building a new technology, a new product, or launching a new type of business, you're just going to be met with always a new challenge, always something that's new that's going on. And the way that I looked at big tech as somebody studying computer science was you can go and work there and get a good paying job, fairly steady. But at the same time, I just saw myself probably working on something like making the iPhone bigger and bigger and bigger year after year after year. And then the trend changing. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, now I have to make it smaller and smaller and smaller. And I just, thought that was totally uninteresting. So knew that I wanted to get into that. Professor Mason Peck, actually, there was a talk at my freshman dorm about what it meant, the difference between research and engineering. And looking back on it, I disagree with a lot of what was said, actually. But he came and, he was the former CTO of NASA, actually. And he talked about how great research was, how all the smart people were working on research. And research was figuring out how to do the hard things nobody knows how to do yet. And engineering was following the instructions somebody else has set forth. I think that's relatively inaccurate. Actually, I think there's a lot more that goes into engineering. I think there's a great interplay between research and engineering. They have a lot to gain and learn from each other. But at the time, I was like, okay, well, great. I want to get into research. I'm one of those smart people. I want to figure out how to do something that's new. So ended up getting a job in his lab, working on aerospace engineering research. And I ended up learning pretty quickly as a software engineer, studying computer science, that I was very much just writing the code or sort of following the instruction manual that somebody else had come up with. And within that field, that was what I felt like I was actually doing. So pretty quickly after joining that project, I really enjoyed it. It was a great project. And anytime that you have the opportunity to work in space travel, it's just immediately, it's just immediately inspiring.
Yeah, that's insane, man. That's you're doing crazy shit. That's wild, of course.
Exactly. And anytime you get to be part of that, no matter what you're actually doing, it's just inspiring to be part of that mission. And I had a great class my freshman year. It's just the history of exploration that I found just incredibly interesting. And to be a part of that in any way, I thought was super inspiring and super interesting. But I did want to get into something that was more me asking the questions and finding out the solution. So I started to look around pretty quickly at computer science research. But I will say, working in space, it is a little bit like, well, even the janitor at NASA is talking about, how passionate they are about their job. I think that's really true. It doesn't matter what you're doing. If you're part of that mission, there's something that's just so inspiring about doing whatever your part is to help. But still, I wanted to get into more computer science research. So I started looking around and ended up finding an opportunity at Ava Labs. So I ended up joining as an intern that summer. So this was 2019. And I worked on building the first wallet to be compatible with the Avalanche network, which was a great lesson learned that I'm a terrible, terrible, terrible front-end engineer. I built something that was really pretty awful, but luckily showed that I was pretty smart, pretty hardworking, ended up working on Avalanche Go, the consensus client after that, as well as working on Python client for a while, and ended up just becoming a part of the client team for a long time. Around the time of mainnet launch, I switched over to working on the EVM. So I actually spent most of the past few years working on the EVM at Ava Labs, so leading the core ETH and subnet EVM for the C chain, as well as the EVM used on Avalanche for subnets. So that's our Go Ethereum fork, but many other projects have something like that, and we had made some customizations to ours as well. More recently, around this time last year, I switched from that to work on consensus research. So worked on V2 of the Avalanche consensus protocol. And then this past summer, I stepped up to take the lead on the Hyper SDK project. So this is our high performance blockchain SDK project that I'm sure we can talk a lot more about later as well. Yeah, so that's sort of my story. It was very much just not, not trading or anything like that. It was just, I wanted to do some interesting computer science research and found my way at Cornell of, okay, here are some interesting projects to work on.
That's super cool. You also don't hear that every day in crypto. Buddy left aerospace to join blockchain, but we'd love to see that.
It's an undergrad research stuff, but yeah.
Yeah, it's still we're cranking up the median and mean IQ a little bit, so we love to see that. You guys have done so many cool things. The most recent thing, and we got to get into this. We'll start with Avalanche 9000. I also love the branding you guys have done. Heck, the whole team. Everywhere I look on Twitter, I'm seeing Avalanche 9000. You change your name. Everyone at Ava Labs has changed their name. Super cool. I love to see that. And then we'll get into Avalanche as a whole, as I'm sure a lot of the listeners are, just maybe not concerned per se, but really want to know what's going on with Avalanche and AVAX. But Avalanche 9000, one of the biggest upgrades that Avalanche has ever undergone, to my knowledge, makes launching the L1 99.9% cheaper, like dirt cheap to launch an L1. Walk me through it. What exactly did you guys do, and why is this so incredible for not just, AVAX and Avalanche, but crypto as a whole?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think in crypto as a whole, there's a lot of work that goes into launching a chain. And on Avalanche, at the beginning of the network, we decided to set it up so that you can launch your own, what was originally called subnets, as part of the Avalanche network, with the intention that anybody launching a blockchain as part of this network of networks would instantly be able to communicate with all of the other chains that are out there. And the reason for this is really just a strong original belief in horizontal scaling as the only reasonable approach to scale Web3 to the extent that we wanted to allow. Right. So vertical scaling obviously has to be part of the solution. And we're starting to work more heavily on this as well, single chain performance. But a part of it has to be horizontal scaling as well. If you look at the history of the internet, there's never been a time where an entire application was built purely vertically, right? Every different website is run on a different server. And so the original intent was, yes, there's going to be some sort of multi-chain ecosystem. People are going to have different demands of what their validator set is going to look like. They're going to want to run different VMs, different state management. And for all of these reasons, there was a very early belief at Ava Labs that horizontal scaling was the right approach. That being said, at the genesis of the Avalanche network, we set it up partially as a way to say, how are all of these networks going to fit together? It was set up so that if you launched a new subnet on the Avalanche network, your validators actually have to be a subset of the primary network's validator set. And there was a practical reason for this, which was, okay, if it's a subset, then we have a natural cap on the size of the validator set for the entire network. We can always very easily keep that in memory. We can very easily have some bounds on how large it's going to be, as well as know how to communicate across those different networks. And additionally, we also made it so that the minimum staking requirement on the Avalanche network, partially because, again, it had to be a subset of the primary network, was 2,000 Avax. And so this, when we first launched, Avax was at 50 cents. That would be about $1,000. That's actually a pretty reasonable amount of money. It's pretty low entry point. But Of course, over the years, Avax has been volatile and has also appreciated a lot. It's much more valuable now, and that ended up being a much higher price point. So in a lot of the conversations that we've been having over the years, telling people, here's how you launch an Avalanche subnet, that price point was just too high. And in addition, hearing how this goes, right, that's sort of an artificial price point as well. 2,000 Avax is, in order to launch your own subnet, in order to have a validator, it's going to be 2,000 Avax. And that's sort of arbitrarily set. So the upgrade in Avalanche 9000 is two things. It is making it so that requirement is no longer there whatsoever. So there's no requirement that you are a primary network validator, and there's additionally no requirement that you are staking 2,000 Avax. And the reason for this is really simple. we want to scale the number of people that are able to launch chains on Avalanche. So we've gotten rid of that sort of artificial barrier to entry in order to make it so it's trivially easy to launch a chain on Avalanche, because the strategy now is, and I think very much should be, it's just like Facebook. You want to make you don't want to start having advertisements before the party is cool,
Exactly.
right? I think this was sort of the wrong strategy
Well
originally, is that there's trying to have this, not necessarily extractive, but a value accrual story for a Vox before there is actually people trying to use it. And I think it's so much more valuable to build a network that people want to use. And for Avalanche and its horizontal scaling vision, that had to be with making it sufficiently easy for people to build the network. And so the shift now, in my opinion, what it should be for the Avalanche network, and I think is a good strategy for blockchains in general, is you should be really offering some set of services and running a dynamic fee market for those services, right? And it should be governed by capacity, it should be covered by the validator set wants to have this set of hardware requirements, wants to dedicate this amount of resources. And so that's the direction that it's going now, is we're actually offering these things basically with there's some capacity and some target rate of the number of validators on the network, which as long as we're below that target, it's going to be, extremely low. So it's extremely cheap to launch a validator set, to launch your own blockchain, to launch your own L1 on Avalanche.
I absolutely love that. I mean, what a takeaway, especially the Facebook analogy. Like, it's so true with anything else in life. Like, people can feel and experience there's that qualitative oomph to cool, but you still can't. It's so hard to explain. It's so nuanced, but like you can't put a price on cool. And again, I feel like you and I are pretty close in age. I'm born in 95. I'm 29 years old. When I joined Facebook, I want to say I was 12 or 13 years old. It was cool as fuck, pardon my French, but like it was electric, that feeling logging on, seeing which new friends are going on, which new girls from my school or girls from another school are going on and liking my shit. Like, it was who's on the timeline. It was it was so cool.
And then within like 5 years, what the hell is this?
It is nonsense. But again, it's like you got to keep shit cool before you can really start, extracting, I don't even want to say value, but extracting dollars and monetary things from people. Absolutely, I love that. Aaron, you're on a roll. We got to take a quick break though. Huge shout out to Prime XBT, longtime friends and longtime sponsors of Crypto News and the Crypto News podcast. We love these guys as they offer a robust trading system for both beginners and professional traders. It doesn't matter if you're a rookie or a vet, you can easily design and customize your layouts and widgets to best fit your trading style. Prime XBT is also running an exclusive promo for listeners of the Crypto News podcast. You can use the promo code CryptoNews50, that is CryptoNews50, all one word, to receive 50% of your deposit credited to your trading account. Again, that is CryptoNews50, all one word, to receive 50% of your deposit credited to your trading account. Now, back to the show with Aaron. I want to keep buzzing on L1s for a sec. Again, that's sort of the big, at least to my knowledge. And again, I'm going to get you to keep buzzing on the 9,000 upgrade. But L1s as a whole, I feel like the last couple of years, up until last year, I want to say 2021 and 2, even a big chunk of 2023, everyone was like, launch L2s, they're going to be the future, EVM this, EVM that. I feel like the narrative changed. Everyone is back to the L1 narrative. You have Sui popping off. You have Supra. We just had Supra on the pod as well. They're incredible, super quick as well. L1s are back. They're hot. They're sexy. They're trendy. You need to own the vertical stack. You talked about how important it is to build vertically. It has to happen. We can't keep just building horizontally. We're not going to get anywhere in crypto. What is your take on L1s as a whole? Is it certainly the future? And just sort of walk me through how AVAX, besides just obviously allowing people to launch super quick L1s, but how AVAX and Avalanche is helping the whole L1 ecosystem as well.
I mean, I'll preface this by saying I'm probably the most likely to play devil's advocate of anything at Ava Labs. It's just kind of my personality and how I go into almost anything. So I'll give you probably a different take than you get from most people at Ava Labs. But I think at the end of the day, the market swings back and forth, and it's based off of these different trends that are going on, where people are very concerned about the narrative for Ethereum right now with L2s, right? There's a huge amount of activity that has gone towards the base. And I think this is actually amazing to see. And there's also a massive amount of concern of, well, if this is the case, what position does that put Ethereum in? And I don't think it's a bad position, actually. Like, this is their scaling vision. But I think, there is a concern that there's not going to be value accrual to Ethereum, or that if it is a centralized L2 like base, that they're in a very powerful position. Are people still going to be using Ethereum or other L2s? Does that put them in some privileged position where they can very easily switch away from it at some point? And I think very luckily, and I think is the reason they got there, is because I think that's unlikely to happen. For one, I think it's built by a team that is very very pro Ethereum, very pro decentralization. I think they're trying to go in that direction over time. And I think they've selected a set of trade-offs that make sense for them. And I think L2s and L1s and a variety of other things offer a different set of trade-offs that at any given point in time, you have some people that are actually looking at the problem and saying, this is the set of trade-offs that make sense for me. And then you also have the meta trend, which is, maybe a year ago was, I'm just going to launch an L2 no matter what. And there's a lot of people, even L3s, right? Which I think never really made a whole lot of sense personally.
Yeah.
But you have people who are looking at the meta narrative and saying, whatever is popular right now, that's what I'm going to do. I think that they offer different sets of trade-offs and have good use cases, or both can have good use cases. But obviously the meta trend is shifting a bit back right now to people want to launch L1s. They each have their own trade-offs. I think, this trend right now is really driven by the question of value accrual for Ethereum as Base has gained popularity, as Solana has gained popularity, and Ethereum is sort of on a mission to, I don't know, rediscover its soul, however you want to call it, rediscover its North Star. I mean, it's really funny to watch. I mean, I'm not really that big on crypto Twitter. I don't engage too much, but I watch from the sides every now and then. And it's really hilarious to watch these debates. I mean, it's
wild.
It's absolutely crazy. And yeah, they're trying to figure it out. I think they've had a North Star for a long time, and the path to getting there just looks a little bit different than what people expected. But yeah, absolutely. There are trade-offs to L2s or L1s. I think that L1s offer a lot of great things. And we're working on a blockchain SDK at Ava Labs called the Hyper SDK, which is trying to make it so that is as easy as possible to launch high performance blockchains, high performance L1s, where you control your own stack with as much customizability as possible, with a networking layer over your state, make it as easy as possible to just define your application specific logic. And if you don't want to customize anything else, you don't have to. But at the same time, all those other layers, all those other components that go into an L1 are easily customizable and extensible. And I think that's just the right way to build software. And for many people that I'm talking to about building on the Hyper SDK, they are running into problems. Most of the problems that they're running into is the place that I've launched or the place that I want to launch doesn't support the throughput or what I want to do. And like many applications, the problem ends up being state management. So I've talked to a large number of applications that are saying, this is just too gas intensive to do on the EVM.
Of course.
And the typical bottleneck is, well, I'm trying to manage my state, and actually it's for whatever reason, just very, very expensive to do in Ethereum. With Ethereum, it is, or the EVM, I guess. With EVM, your storage is actually laid out as a set of 32 byte key, or a mapping between 32 byte key value pairs. So this is very limiting, right? If you have larger key, smaller key, or larger values, or want to manage it in some different way, you're basically hampered to manage your state in this one very particular way, which was not built for any particular application. It was actually built to be as simple as possible and as general purpose as possible, which it is. You can lay out whatever state that you want in this storage space, but it's not built to be performant for any application. And there's so many different possibilities that are out there of, I want my state to look like this. And so trying to put the round peg into a square hole, so to speak, of, well, my state is X, and therefore I just have to remap that onto this key value space is gonna result in a loss of efficiency. And so for a lot of protocols, a lot of applications that are trying to build with the infrastructure that is available now, which has come so far in the past 5-10 years, to a point where I really think a lot of the applications we've talked about or dreamed about in the past are very much possible today on, the level of infrastructure that's available today. It may still be cost prohibitive to do that on a general permissionless network, or on a network that is hampering you by forcing you into here's how you're going to manage your state.
Yeah.
So I think opening that up where everything is customizable to your application, this is what every application in Web2 really looks like, is you build for one application, right? The database is obviously a classic a very normal starting point of, well, if I'm building an application, one of the first things I'm going to think about is, what is the data that I have to manage look like, and how do I build an efficient representation of that? And if that's already decided for you, that's going to put you in a tough position. So I think that L1s put you in a position to say, or not L1s actually, but building your own chain, an app chain, puts you in a position to have greater degree of control over that. And I also think that there's a lot of applications that could be built on general permissionless chains because they don't actually have that high of requirements, right? So there's a number of applications. Teleport is an application built on Solana that's trying to build the Uber for Web3. And I asked them, why are you building on Solana? Why not build your own app chain? This is a pretty high scale application. And it was a very simple response that I think made a lot of sense. It was, we don't have to worry about it. We don't have to worry about our validator side. It just sort of works. And I think that's a great reason to have these decentralized protocols that have general and permissionless block spaces. I can just treat this as a backend that I don't have to worry about, just like serverless, right?
It's Web 2. It's sort of like Web 2. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that the way to build in Web 3 is to give people these options. And I think it is still a little bit too early to say what is exactly the right thing. I have my opinions and other people have different ways of doing things. And I think that it's going to come down to, we've built a huge amount of infrastructure that's way more performant than what was available in the past 5-10 years. I think what we're going to see in the next 2 is a lot of people actually iterating and experimenting, building those applications that we've really dreamed about and talked about for a long time on infrastructure that's actually here in a regulatory climate that hopefully is about to become a lot more clear as well. And I think we're already starting to see this. I'm way more excited about protocols being built today than I was probably, in the DeFi summer, where it was just a lot of copy paste. I think there's a lot more diversity happening right now. And I think it's going to come down to execution. And, there's probably a lot of applications that actually could be built on any number of different, sets of trade-offs between L2s, L1s, et cetera. And I think it's going to come down to execution of those teams. So what are they choosing to build on top of? And sometimes there's going to be, well, I built this on a decentralized permissionless chain and my competitor built on an app chain and they were able to give a better experience as a result, and one is going to win, right?
I love that.
So I think we're going to see a lot of experimentation, a lot of competition in the next few years. I'm really excited for it.
What do you think the crypto killer app is going to be? I mean, you and I have mentioned Facebook a couple times here. I've said this, I think you're episode 401 on the podcast, which is wild to think about. I've said this probably on 200 episodes. We need a killer app. Right now, the killer apps are stablecoins and centralized exchanges. And we're sort of getting into that decentralized exchange, but it's still not a killer app because it doesn't really onboard people unless you're in that 1%. You still need a centralized exchange, to get to that decentralized exchange. What's going to be the Facebook, the Uber, the TikTok, the Instagram, Snapchat? Do you have an idea of what that's going to be? Is it going to be SocialFi? Any idea or inclination of what might that powerful super killer app, FOMO inducing app might be for crypto?
I don't know what that one app is and don't want to give here's exactly the app that it's going to be. I think there's a lot of different possibilities. Payments is the classic one. Payments is the one that unlocks so many different things and making that seamless, making zero integration. I do see a trend, and I think a lot of apps that have been built in Web 2 in the past are starting to be built on Web 3. I think one that is not even an individual app is just incentives, right? Or go to market. It's become so much harder to build a Web 2, an iPhone app, a new social media company that actually gets adoption. It's become so much harder than it was when there was a lot less competition, 10, 15 years ago. I've read some stats from, a few people on Twitter. I couldn't quote anything, but it's become a lot harder to actually launch a successful business that way. And I think that one of the, maybe not the killer app, but the killer differentiator can very easily be incentives, right?
Feature,
it can
100%.
just, the feature,
so
right?
It's so easy to give back to your users with crypto.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
friggin' easy.
Yeah, and I've seen Off the Grid, which was launched on Avalanche, a couple weeks back. I don't know, are you a gamer, Matt?
No, I used to be, not anymore.
Yeah, I'm not much of a gamer either, so I've played it a little bit. I just got killed immediately, but this is a first-person shooter, battle royale. I had absolutely no fun at all. I just got killed immediately. I never have fun playing any of these games, but a lot of people love it. It's been a top-rated game. It's been winning awards. It's built by, I think Neil Blomquist is the name of one of the developers behind the game, or the storyline creators. There was a movie, I think it was called District 9, featuring Matt Damon.
Good flick.
Yeah, exactly. So it's built around that same storyline. It's gaining a huge amount of popularity, and they are already, they're creating an in-game marketplace to compete with Web 2 games that have been built that don't have the same level of marketplace. And this has been a really common idea in Web 3 gaming for a long time, but most of the games that have been built so far are sort of lower quality games, right? They're not Call of Duty. They're not competing with 2K. And this is at that caliber of, this is a really high quality game. People who are hardcore gamers and don't give a fuck about crypto and have hated on it for a long time are actually playing this game, trying it out and saying, holy shit, I don't care about crypto, but this is awesome, right?
Why? Because it's fun.
It's just
cool.
fun.
Like we talked about. Exactly. We got to go back to that. Got to go back to that ethos.
And at the same time, when you have a game like that is actually able to create the in-game marketplace and then create an in-game economy that's thriving, they're able to give back to their users. If you have two games, Off the Grid and I don't know too many games, so let's say Off the Grid and Call of Duty. And Call of Duty, you're playing in the typical sense, you're not making any money off of it. And then Off the Grid is at that level or maybe even a little bit better. And on top of that, they're paying gamers out, $1,000,
No brainer.
$5,000.
No brainer.
I mean, when I was a kid, I was always looking for some ways to make money.
100%.
So I think that's
Yeah.
going to be just a really obvious story. And I think that can drive adoption in a lot of ways. Another one that I was a huge fan of was, have you heard of Vana Network?
Well, no, I haven't.
Vana Network, I met the founder at an decentralized AI conference in New York, and I was just so impressed. And Vana Network is a data DAO application. And the idea is that you were going to create DAOs to own a certain data set. So the first big one was called Reddit Data DAO. So what they did was they created a DAO for people to upload their data, their own personal Reddit data. And they said, well, everyone can come and upload their data here. And we're going to get 100,000, 1 million users worth of data. And then we're going to negotiate with companies that want to buy user data. And the reason this is cool is if I have my own personal data, and that's valuable, and other companies make a lot of money off of my personal data. But if I actually went to the companies paying Facebook for my personal data, they wouldn't want anything to do with it because I'm just one user. It's actually not useful to them at the individual level. It's only useful to them at a certain scale. And so when you get to that scale, it's much more interesting. And so a DAO is one way to coordinate among a decentralized set of consumers. But it's going to be a very hard cold start problem, right? Because most Reddit users don't give a shit, right?
Exactly.
And so what ended up happening was, I think they had maybe 500, 5,000. I don't know what their early numbers were, but they had a couple of users who uploaded their data and they got back a Reddit Data DAO token. So they give them, here's a representation of you uploaded your data. And because this, was reported on, here's an interesting new project in crypto, immediately people that didn't have their Reddit data or weren't users started speculating on these tokens. And so the price of those tokens went up. And I think I saw it listed at $500 or so. And so all of a sudden you have maybe 5,000 people that were actually just early adopters and did it out of the kindness, the goodness of their heart. They just wanted to try it out. And then all of a sudden you have the price or the value that you can get by uploading your Reddit data driven by speculation is up to $500.
Interesting.
And all of a sudden, this is amazing. And so all of those other Reddit users that don't care at all are saying, oh, well, if I upload my Reddit data here, my personal data here, I can get paid $500. And you have this interesting way to bridge the gap over this cold start problem of, well, now maybe there's another 95,000 users that don't care about Reddit data DAO. They don't care about Vana Network, but they're happy to get paid $500 to upload their data. And then you're able to get to, 100,000, 1 million users, whatever it may be. I don't know the exact numbers they got to. And now you actually do have enough user data in order to go out and negotiate on their behalf and sell that data and actually make some money off. I don't end up knowing exactly how much money they made off or if they've negotiated a deal yet. But I think solving that cold start problem, that's not one killer app, but I love seeing the different ways of experimentation with tokens in order to drive adoption.
I love that. Aaron, what an episode, man. This has been an absolute treat. Before you let us go, any news updates that you'd like to give us? Maybe some breaking news for the Crypto News pod. It can be AVAX related. It can be Ava Labs, Avalanche 9000. Give us something new before we let you go here.
I don't have anything too much news, so I'll just say happy holidays to everybody. Enjoy the time to touch some grass with the families and loved ones.
I love it. And before you let us go, where can we find you personally and, of course, Ava Labs online and on socials?
Yeah, on Twitter, I'm just Aaron Buchwald. So I'm sure I can attach my name to this post when it goes out.
You got it. Yeah. Thanks for coming on, man. Really appreciate it. Had an absolute blast. Happy holidays to you and the fam, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thanks so much, Matt.
Folks, what an episode with Aaron Buchwald, software engineer at Ava Labs. He was absolutely on fire today. We discussed everything Avalanche related, launching L1s, the next killer crypto consumer app, which I cannot wait to happen, and it very well could be built on the Avalanche blockchain. Thankfully and fortunately to Aaron and his team's work with Avalanche 9000, you can launch L1s super quick, super easy, and a hell of a lot cheaper. And the future of L1s. What an episode. Shout out to Aaron and the team for making this happen. If you guys enjoyed this one, I hope you did. Please do subscribe. It would mean the world to my team and I. Speaking to the team, love you guys. Thank you so much for everything. And back to the listeners, keep on growing those bags and keep on staying healthy, wealthy, and happy. Love you guys, and we'll see you on the next one. Ciao.